Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Q&As. It's early Thursday morning, so hopefully everybody had enough time to get their questions in, but let's jump in and see what we got. Starting us out over on Patreon, Jason wants to know if anybody's checked out a clone company's latest HDMI adapter, and no, definitely not. Jason, I'm not picking on you, but I do want to be very blunt and direct about this answer. Anybody that supports a clone company, even if you're buying a product that's completely original and not a clone, you are handing them money, which could then be used to fund the theft of another product. And the company that Jason mentioned has been caught doing things like buying something from another company in retro, having it shipped to their headquarters with their name on it, and then a couple of weeks later posting their own clone version of that saying, how would you feel if we started selling our own, our brand new, totally not cloned version of this or whatever? I mean, they've been that brazen about it. So my guess is the new HDMI adapter they have is a rebranded pound cable, but it could be a clone of something else, but I would never buy anything from them anyway. And in fact, if you did decide that you wanted a pound cable, maybe you just play turn-by-turn role-playing games. Maybe you have a beautiful setup, but you just want a backup thing to play on a bigger TV. Maybe you got some nieces and nephews coming over or something, and a 5-year-old's probably not going to care too much about latency if playing Mario Kart on a flat panel, but if they do, high-five that kid. They're one of us. But yeah, there's a time and a place for those things, but in my opinion, there's never a time and a place to support a clone company. So I and nobody I know would ever be checking out anything from them because it's probably garbage either way. But even in the slim miracle that it's worth looking at, I still don't want to buy it because you're just going to pay them to steal somebody else's design. And we've already lost a bunch of people in the scene because they're just sick of getting their very hard work taken from them by clone companies. So once again, not picking on you, Jason. I just wanted to make it very clear my stance on that stuff. And most of my friends, while they're not as much of an asshole about it as I am, they feel exactly the same way, and they're not going to be looking at them either. Next up, a question from Steven Sanders, and I also just forgot that Patreon has now resorted all of their comments by newest on top, so I'm scrolling back to the bottom to get to the oldest comment first again. So Steven's question is, what's the difference in gameplay on an original Xbox when using an SSD versus a hard drive? They've been told the cache data on SSD loads faster, but they haven't been given specifics. For example, they know load screens go faster, but what about live gameplay? If they're playing GTA Vice City and they're running around with a 5-star rating, does the cached on SSD make the game run smoother? And if so, how? Does draw distance load faster, appearance or assets appear faster? Does everything just run smoothly? Because at the moment, all they've been able to confirm is that load times go faster. Whew, I'm sharp today, huh? So I think my guess is that your confirmation is spot on. You have to remember that even if you were to put a, 8,000 megabyte per second NVMe drive in there, you're still limited at the total bus speeds of that original Xbox with that processor on it and everything else. So anytime the limitation was DVD read times or even seek times of the laser going back and forth. Or then if you move on to loading games from a hard drive for soft modded, anytime the bottleneck was the hard drive itself, maybe spinning up, maybe just the slower speeds, that is where you will see a difference switching to an SSD. But once the data actually gets into the Xbox, it's impossible to see any speed differences because of things like that. So to answer your question, if there's ever a scenario in which you're playing a racing game and the mountains pop in the distance faster via an SSD versus a hard drive or a disk, that would only be because it's still accessing the disk and reading things as it goes. But generally speaking, games like that did kind of time it off pretty well, knowing that its laser is still going to have to continuously read the CD. But a lot of this was loaded in memory before each level, depending on the game. I think Modern Vintage Gamer would be a much better person to explain this. Durf from Console Mods, I'm sure, has all the knowledge about this as well. My, general answer to this might be off a little bit, but I do think that the concept sticks and that whenever you're talking about older consoles, And, ODEs of any kind, even just soft mods like this, the only true speed difference you're going to get is really just the limitation of the original media or original hard drive in this case, because you're still just running on the same architecture of everything else on there. So if anybody thinks I missed something, please let me know in the comments. But while my guess is a guess, it is based on quite a long time of running these exact types of tests on multiple platforms. Although I haven't done an in-depth version on an original Xbox like this, I have done stuff elsewhere that does kind of line up everything to match what I said. Pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Next up, Weishlo wants to know my opinion on Oleg Endo's new Sega Nomad board that allows you a choice of either a Genesis 2 style 9-pin MiniDIN, the same one that was on the original Nomad, or a Sega Saturn style 10-pin MiniDIN that would also allow for S-video output. And I have a couple of thoughts on this. First, because it's different, it's going to be a lot less of a big deal as other stuff that's out there. So what I mean is, like, you have to plug a physical different cable into it. So it's not like Oleg's changing the output on the same connector. And I guess the best example are consoles that require components in the cable. Some people have done mods to put those components in the console so you could use a cheaper cable. But that would cause tons of problems, because what if you ever used that cable in a different device? What if you use the correct cable in that one? And that's not the case in this at all. I am a little bit worried about somebody fumbling through and seeing, what the heck is this? And still trying to jam their cable in, because you're going to ruin your cable and that MiniDIN jack. But generally speaking, as long as people realize it's different, I think it really should just come down to how important is S-video output to you from your Nomad. I personally am going to be buying the 9-pin MiniDIN because I use my Nomad basically exclusively for testing, using Laser Bear, the Greg's battery pack, the lithium-ion one, so I could take it around, and I've been using it for everything, even 480i testing. Although for the permanent test, I went to the Wii because it's more of a standardized 480i signal, but I love using my Nomad for testing everything, but I also use it for testing Genesis specific stuff. So I'm going to keep it as the original. However, I do see a lot of people wanting the option for S-video output, because what if you mostly like to play on your Nomad, but you also have a beautiful CRT with S-video output? So while I am a little bit worried about people just not even paying attention and, just smashing the wrong cable into it, it's not as big a deal as some of these mods that I've seen that could mislead people into using the wrong cable by accident. So that's not at all what I see here. I just see a choice. I'm going to keep it stock style. So you could just say, this is basically a portable Genesis, use a Genesis cable, but I have no negativity or no problems with having the 10-pin on there. I really just think it should come down to what cables do you already own, and do you need S-video? So if you say, I already have a whole bunch of Saturn cables, I bought them for my Mister, maybe you got a Retro Castle Saturn MiniDIN style case, I already have everything I need for that, so then cool, stick with the Saturn. Or if you need S-video, go for that. But if you don't really know or care, I would just stick with the original, just so when the next person down the line gets this, they just look at this and go, okay, Nomad, Genesis, I'm going to use a Genesis cable, and that's kind of where it ends. Next up, Tony Shadwick has a couple of questions. First, they're looking to convert RGBS to 240p HDMI, so just a basic analog to digital converter. And you could absolutely use the OSSC for that. And in fact, it would do an excellent job, because you're not just getting an ADC, you're also allowing the low-pass filter to work, provided that you're using the SCART or component video inputs, which is always really crucial when you're going from analog to digital. You need some kind of filtering, or you just get weird analog video noise on the screen that didn't exist with CRTs, because they're inherently analog as well. So what exactly would you be using this for? I think in order to properly answer the question, I would need to know the target and the use case. Because if you were saying something like, oh, I just will get a bunch of ADCs to convert to HDMI and then use an HDMI switch to go into the Tink 4K, that actually would not be a good idea, because you'd be bypassing all of the really high-end analog to digital conversion circuitry and software that the Tink 4K has built in. But there are a bunch of use cases where I could completely see that as a good option. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more and I could help walk you through it, or just use an OSSC. You should, and set it to pass-through mode. Next question is, they need an RGBS to composite converter specifically for the use of an Ambilight style configuration that uses a Raspberry Pi. So those are the lighting that you put around a flat panel where the ambient light changes based on what's on screen via what you're watching. And if that's all you need, I'm pretty sure just those basic RGB to S video and composite converters that you see out there would work. Those generally are fine for S video, not as good as native S video, but totally fine, absolutely playable, and not great for composite in most cases. However, it might work fine for this because you're really just trying to get overall color data. So there's the one from Wakaba Video, Jam, they sell on eBay, I believe. There's one from the UK, Retro Upgrades, I think. I'm so sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but I would just search for that one. And Ivory from Retro Castle has the original version of that for sale. The good version is still delayed because of factory issues, not because of the product, because of the factory. I really expected that to be up for sale still in winter time. So I don't know when we're getting that, but it could be any day now. But those are the ones with the variable capacitor where you could dial in very good composite video. Not quite as good as native, but very good. So for your use case, you should just be able to get one of those other ones and just kind of hope that it works. But I've never done anything like that, so I don't know if the weirdness that you would get from the composite conversion would affect that in any way. But my advice is, if you have any potential use for an RGB to S video converter, now you have a tool in your toolbox as well as something to potentially use for this. So I would, I'd be comfortable giving it a try if you could have multiple uses for it. But if not, then you might want to look into what other people are doing for that, just to try to get. Or is anybody else doing that? If not, let me know and maybe we could figure it out together. But good questions. I just need more info on both of them to give you a real answer. Next up, Chris LaRoque recently picked up an N64 for the collection with some sorry-feeling thumbsticks that need to be sorted so they could play. What options are out there for casual gamers looking to repair or replace their N64 thumbsticks? I believe we've covered a bunch on RetroRGB, but this is one of those things where I would see what's available. I would search our website. I would kind of search through some YouTube reviews and see. I know there's some high-end stuff out there that's a little more on the expensive side. I know there's some generic replacements that were kind of junk, and I know there's a lot in between that people had found to be fine. So I would kind of do a little bit of research on this and see what's available today. I actually haven't kept up on that one, so you might want to just take a couple of minutes and see. And if you find a great thing, let me know, and maybe we could do a write-up on it if we haven't already. I just know that, with all kinds of upgrades like this, it's hard to tell what's a real complaint and what's nitpicking. And I love the nitpicking. I mean, I love this. I love that people are taking this stuff very seriously, but some complaints I've heard were you don't get the full motion of the original stick. So it's actually missing things. And other people are kind of more for accuracy. They want to make sure it's totally perfect. I think finding something in the middle for most people would be fine. Just kind of ignore the junk. And, if you see a brand that's been known for selling garbage before, like any of those companies that sell those power supplies that weigh like half an ounce, it'll probably set your house on fire, maybe stay away from their N64 sticks as well. But I'm sure there's good stuff out there. And if anybody has suggestions, please post in the comments. But just a polite reminder, YouTube very often deletes links that doesn't even show up in my held for review bin. So if you say buy the X brand Model Y thing, that's fine. But if you drop a link, it'll probably get deleted. So any help the community has on this one would be awesome. I'd kind of like to know myself, is there one or two that's like the definitive, yeah, these are good, maybe not perfect, but safe to use? And is there, one or two like, yeah, this is the one to go to if you're a competitive N64 player or something? I'd love to know that for sure. So please let me know in the comments. Next up, Jason Guffey and I have been talking behind the scenes about making SCART extension cables, and I suggested just getting a decent SCART to SCART cable, removing one of the ends, and adding a receptacle SCART connector on that end, essentially turning it into an extension cable. And Jason wants to know, since the SCART pinout is so much weirder than they're used to, they're looking for some pointers, especially when it comes to the input and output pins for audio and sync. Funny you ask that. When T and I were making the SCART coupler, T sent me the design to check over the pinout, and I skimmed through it and went, yeah, looks great. And we made design number 1, and sync was in the wrong spot. I had swapped them. I don't know why I had such a hard time visualizing it, but I did. So I did it all, and T was like, okay, I'll do another rev. Is everything else okay? I was like, yeah, it's definitely fine. And I screwed it up a second time. The sync was fixed the first time, and then I didn't bother checking audio because I was like, oh, all right, well, we made a mistake. Let me make a new one, and then I'll do a deep dive test, totally forgetting to just check audio. And the second rev, audio was swapped. So 100% my fault. I just was visualizing it wrong. So what I would suggest to you is start wiring it up. The RGB stuff should line up fine, but start wiring it up piece by piece and test it piece by piece. Meaning like, start by doing RGBS and seeing if sync works. And if it doesn't, swap the ins and outs and see if sync works that time. Then wire up audio and maybe start with left and then go from there. And because you're doing these one at a time and you're probably only making 1 or 2, it's not so tedious because you're going to have everything laid out on your desk. You'll have your little adapter right there. So my suggestion would be to do it that way, and just that way you don't even have to really worry about it, right? Pick whatever it says as the ins, wire it to that, check it. The worst thing that could possibly happen is if you reverse the audio or sync ins and outs, is you don't get audio and you don't get sync. It's not like, it's not like you're sending voltage to something else. As long as you're sticking to the correct pinout, you're just worrying about SCART in versus SCART out. That's all you would have to worry about. So that's definitely what I would suggest, just because it's going to be easier on you overall. And then make notes how you would understand them. And that is a tease against me, not a tease against Jason, but I very often will look at a pinout or a schematic and I'll be like, upside down yellow thingy is the front. And anybody else looks at that note and they're like, what's wrong with Bob? Where I look at it and I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Upside down thingy. Gotcha. So I would leave your own personal notes for that just to see and kind of go from there. But yeah, doing it one at a time is probably going to be the best bet. One more from Jason. Lastly, more of a curiosity than anything, what is even the point of the different input and output pins in the SCART pinout? So there was a video someone released a while back that perfectly articulated this, and to the point that I don't even want to word vomit over it. I think I really should just drop a link to that and have you watch it, especially you, Jason, because you're going to, I think, love the little nuances of what SCART could have actually been used for. So, I definitely think watching that video would answer all of your questions, but basically it allows for pass-through control and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it. It's pretty cool. I do think that on paper, SCART was the best analog video connector ever made. I do think that, when we're talking about how we use it now in retro gaming, there's so many cheap cables made with bad sync voltages, and you never had to worry about voltage with any other cable connector ever. And we've all had RCA cables that are too tight or too loose, but that's generally a cheaper cable to replace than this big thick thing with, if you have a cheap connector and it pops out. So I get all the hatred for SCART, but I also fully understand what an amazing thing it was. So I would watch that video and kind of get all your answers from that one. And if you have any other thoughts, fire it up for next week, but I think that video is a good summary. Well, that's it for this week. If you have any questions, make sure to get them in for next week, because I'm going to have to skip the week after because of Retro World Expo. But any questions at all that you have, please put them wherever it is that you support in the latest Q&A post. The way the services work, I can't really figure out what's a new question on an old post. Plus, as you saw today, I like just scrolling through in real time and answering the questions as if we were hanging out, having a chat somewhere. So any questions at all, fire away. And as always, thank you so much to everybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week.